thing. On the odd chance things got too bad, we could hop on my boat, I guess.
Boat.
Hello there everyone, and welcome to part 4 of my The Walking Dead Season 1 retrospective. We're approaching the end of this long project, and I don't know how I'm going to release the last section, whether I'm going to release the full thing as a full video or if I'm going to keep them separate. But first, an apology that this video took so long. I needed a little bit of a break. I got addicted to Baldur's Gate 3. As well as an exciting announcement. I'll be taking part in GDQ's Flame Fatales. I will be speedrunning Tomb Raider 3 any percent, so I've been practicing that. Hence the long wait, but I hope it's worth it. I've tried several styles of introducing videos, and I think I found an approach which speaks to me more after some experimentation. I like to let people know what they're in for, as well as settling you into the video. I think it's important contextually to identify each section and where it stands in the whole narrative of the story. While each episode has its own narrative structure, i.e. we start with the premise, then we get the gimmick, and then we get the low point, and then we get the success, episode 4 functions as the low point for the entire story. Everything seems to be working against us in ways that we cannot control. There's a sense of hopelessness only outweighed by one particular hope that we'll be getting to in a little bit. So please strap in and enjoy. It's time to talk about The Walking Dead again. We start episode 4 walking through an abandoned street in a suburb in Savannah. Lee, looking very unimpressed with Clementine, asking if she can hold the walkie-talkie. And you can choose how cold you can be here, but it's evident Lee is not happy that Clem has been lying about the state of the radio. It's possibly shaken his trust in her slightly, with good reason. It's dangerous for her to be feeding someone else information, and also to what extent has she been doing this? There's a new factor at play now due to this mystery man that Clementine has trusted naively. Given Clem does not trust easily, it's clear that some part of her is clinging to hope that what he says about her parents is true. That's the defining factor that makes it believable that she had jeopardized their safety in this manner. I don't think it's too out of character if we take into consideration this key detail. I'm willing to believe someone picking up her radio frequency and given enough time could convince her to trust him. Bells ring in the distance and the radio bursts with life, the voice coming over warning them to get off the street. During the time jump, we didn't inform Omid and Krista about the radio, and to be honest, they probably weren't privy to that information considering they're new to the group. However, I do understand it can come across as deceptive since apparently the radio was not working. It's also worth noting that the bells couldn't be on a timer considering it's 10 past the hour, but there also hasn't been any electricity in months, so this shouldn't even be a question. I suppose they could be operated on battery. Oh, wait, that's a picture of my medication. How did that get in here? So we have our mystery setup. Chuck throws this cheesy line.
Ask not for whom the bell tolls.
What are you yammering on about?
It tolls for thee.
I love Kenny so much, he just shits on it. Walkers come out of the woodwork, and now our team with an injured member have to run through the streets. It's more zombie mashing fun, and Kenny trips by getting grabbed by a walker, and we have the chance to save him.
Little too close, don't you think?
This is interrupted by a scream from Clementine, cutting to her and Ben being trapped at all sides from walkers, with Lee pleading to Ben to help her. Instead, Ben does this.
God damn it!
Yeah, fuck you, Ben. Lee is able to take out all the zombies sans one, no matter how fast you are, and this is to facilitate Chuck coming in to save her, and him nobly staying behind to fight off the walkers while we make our escape. We find a house with a backyard and a large enough gate to keep us safe temporarily, but we definitely need to find a way inside the house. Most of the conversations here involve reprimanding Ben, who put Clementine's life in danger to save his own. Lee is harsh to Ben once again.
Just hear what I'm saying to you. You put that girl in danger again, it won't be walkers you have to worry about.
I hear you.
I'm gonna go check things out.
This is a running trend of the game shitting on Ben, and I get it, but sometimes it feels overly contrived. But another way to look at it is that we did just learn that he was the person slipping the bandit supplies. Even if his intentions were good, going over the group's head like that ended up costing them more than he knows. Krista is concerned about Omid's injury reopening and getting infected, but checking in with them mostly leads to the urgency to get inside. You can check in with Clem, but she also wants to get inside, and you can comfort her. She also has this darling line.
We used to have a pet hamster. One night he figured out how to open the door to his cage, and when we woke up, he'd eaten half a box of cookies.
I don't think this is quite the same, Clem.
Yeah, right. This time we're the cookies.
Brilliant. Kenny's response to you asking how he is gold.
How you holding up, man?
Lee, I appreciate the interest, but I don't think talking about my feelings right now is going to help us get inside this house.
Once again, brilliant. So we grab a shovel.
First, get a shovel. Patrick, that's
The Ash Bringer. Yes.
And checking the door, we see that there's a locked doggy door, which leads to another classic Kenny moment.
Who the hell ever heard of a locked doggy door?
I have. My neighbor had one just like that. It's radio controlled. The dog wears a collar with a chip in it, so the door only opens when the dog gets close to it.
Well, shit. Every day's a school day.
So we put 2 and 2 together and assume the dog was buried with the collar on. So we have to dig up the dead dog, which is gross, and the smell causes Krista to throw up. They're trying to set something up here, so this is important. Keep this in mind. You've probably got it now that I've mentioned it, but we do actually get the collar after the deceased dog literally rots off the collar. Ugh. The collar opens the door by sheer luck. The mechanism and batteries are still good, which can be possible, but it has been several months at this point. While the adults and Ben try to come up with a plan, Clementine crawls in without anyone noticing and unlocks it. You can either praise or berate her, which fiercely hurts her confidence. But Lee may be at odds with her helping versus placing her in danger. Depending on how you feel about the radio guy, you might not be inclined to allow her to make her own choices the way you would have in episode 3. Lee is tasked with checking all the downstairs areas, with Ben and Kenny going to the top floor to check the upstairs areas. You can check in with Krista, Omid and Clem, but there's not much to analyze here because they want you to check the floor areas so they know that they're safe. There's quite a bit of tension here on the first playthrough because you won't know that the only thing waiting for you is a mop in the big cupboard in the hallway. Ben beckons to Lee and tells him that Kenny went into the attic and he hasn't heard anything. When Lee climbs up, we see Kenny on his knees, unable to move, and we're shown why.
Kenny, you okay, man? Oh, Jesus. What the hell is that? Oh, my God.
This is such an emotional gut punch because this situation could have happened to Duck, and he was clearly designed to look as close to Duck as possible. Kenny is forced to confront his son's death in this manner. It allows him to be vulnerable for the first time in a long time. You can choose how to deal with this. You can choose whether Kenny handles this or whether you do. There are several reasons for either choice here because of how everything is laid out. Depending on whether you or Kenny handle Duck, you can choose how this grants Kenny closure on what happens here. For example, if you handle Duck, you could encourage Kenny to do this to provide some closure from being unable to do the same for Duck, or you could see Kenny as completely unable to handle things like this, so you step in every time to protect his sanity. There's other combinations here, and we can talk at length about the weight of just these outcomes, but overall it's based on your philosophy on these matters. Kenny didn't get to bury Duck, so he suggests that we do that for this kid, and Lee goes out to handle this. There's a lot of weight to this as you silently bury the kid in a shallow grave, up until we get another jump scare in the form of a man watching Lee bury the kid. You can yell at him to scare him away. He seems to be covered in shadow despite it being broad daylight, so it's a little convoluted that we can't see him. Everyone else comes outside, and you can choose to lie here, but I don't know why you would, given there's obvious danger and you need your group to decide on how to handle this situation. Kenny wants people to move out immediately to get a boat from the port out here in savannah, but Omid is in no position to travel. Kenny seems very disinterested, so Kenny and Lee team up to go and check out the docks, and trying to ask Kenny how he's doing doesn't really result in anything. He's wounded by everything and I can't blame him. His life has been practically shattered into nothingness, and now he needs to find new meaning and fill that hole that was left by his whole family dying. I am a massive fan of this line though.
Maybe whoever's ringing that is just trying to distract us, create a diversion.
Whatever, man. I find whoever's doing that, I'll ring their motherfucking bell for them.
Good one.
That's just brilliant. This time the bells are going off in the distance, so the area we're in would actually be cleared of walkers. The bells are being utilized indifferent to where we are, given the evidence we're provided. Every boat is fucked. Well, except one, according to Kenny, but soon after we find out he was being overly optimistic. But that's the least interesting thing here. There's an entire wall of dead, with walkers stuck on pikes like fucking scarecrows with signs saying, "Keep out," which, yeah, I'm staying out of there. I'm sure we won't have to go inside there. We use the binoculars after beating the living shit out of a vending machine, and then after checking everything we see a person climbing down off the rooftops. So we have to be really careful because this person is extremely nimble. We see them crouch behind a booth, so Kenny and Lee try to sneak up on them. They get the jump on Lee, and you can get the upper hand if you're extremely quick. But I've only been able to hit the prompt fast enough once on my latest playthrough. It's an extremely tight time window, especially on controller. If you lose, Clementine will shout out, "What is she doing here?" which causes the attacker to just stop and just, where is Kenny? I've got quite a bit of criticisms of the story, but Kenny being completely uninvolved in a scrap where Lee almost dies seems a bit like an oversight. The reason that this is done is because Molly believed us to be from Crawford until seeing Clementine, because there aren't any children allowed in Crawford. But I don't see why Kenny didn't need to be involved. If you killed the St. John brothers in episode 2 and you win the fight, you notice Clementine, but she gives you a harrowing stare because she's come to accept, reluctantly, that her mentor kills people to protect her. You and Molly start talking, and then Kenny shows up behind her and gets the gun knocked out of his hand. Well done, Kenny. Wow, you really did everything you could there. There are very few instances of the story that don't make sense, but this is definitely one of them. There's no way a proactive character like Kenny would not immediately sneak up on her or just straight up shoot her. It rubs me the wrong way, especially if Molly is about to kill Lee outright. I could understand if Kenny hates you, but even on playthroughs where Kenny and Lee get along well, this is still the case. Molly gives us some insight into Crawford and tells us she's been ringing the bells, but the voice on the radio didn't match hers, so her story that she's been using the bells to move walkers around for easy looting is believable. The gunshot that went off has brought walkers, so now we need to escape, with Molly easily climbing to the second level of the fire escape, leaving us behind. And it's only the fact that Clementine is there that she has a change of heart to help us. So all things considered, I guess it's a good thing that Clementine got here. Her traveling alone to catch up with us is certainly interesting, especially since we left Ben in charge of her, so that's not a great look. Kenny and Clementine are able to get to safety, but there's no time to get Lee up, so we're forced to find another way, with Clementine pleading for us to be safe, which broke my heart. Molly gives us Hilda, and we're able to make our escape down a manhole, which is lucky, though Lee almost gets killed by a walker falling down the manhole. And now we have to find our way out of the sewers. We find Chuck's body, who saved the last bullet for himself so he didn't become a walker. I feel that Chuck is an interesting concept of a character, a man who cast aside being part of a group or family to live on his own, but still enjoys the company of people. He's a realist, and given that he survived so long on his own, we can assume he's capable, as well as having a boxcar to keep him safe at night. His advice to us about Clementine isn't just because he wanted to be an asshole, he even says this.
I don't mean to tell you how to do your job, but too many people have died already.
They have.
And seeing another little girl die might just do me in.
Giving her mentor and parental stand-in a stern talking to was a way to facilitate Lee's change in attitude. He was a short addition to the story, but some characters are, and I think it functions as a means of ensuring we're on the edge of our seats about who lives and who dies. We do a small puzzle here involving the water system to herd the walkers to where we need them to be, including a panic section where we get grabbed by the ankle and have to choose quickly how to escape. The gun is loud and quick, but Hilda is stealthy and with a bit more immediate risk. Using Hilda gives us more time to escape the sewers. Trying the thick bars does nothing, but trying to imitate Molly doesn't work, but it does reveal the sign is loose and it leads to a hole in the wall with a huge amount of stocked up, non-perishable food and other items. Opening the door, we're met with a survivor group and one of them pulls a gun on us.
Who are you?
They're scared because they think we're from Crawford, and that if Crawford finds out where they are, they'll try to take them back. I'm sure a lot of people can justify the aggressive approach Lee takes here, but up until now, the game has been relatively nuanced in its approaches to problems, where I could see both sides, but I cannot justify taking the more threatening and violent option here. Unlike with Brenda, yelling at Vernon yields the same QuickTime event of grabbing the gun from him, only in a more aggressive manner.
Can't take the risk.
You threatening me, old man? Because you're not gonna like how that goes. Put the fucking gun down before you really make me mad.
He's bluffing.
You think so? Try me.
Keep back, or I swear I'll shoot.
No, I don't think so. I know killers. Seen my share. You ain't got the look. And that means you ain't got the balls. Now drop the goddamn gun!
Oh, God. Vernon, what have you done?
I can see playing Lee like this instills a sense that you're playing more of a villain. I can justify a lot of things, but during the encounter with the cancer survivors, you openly threaten them and can even lie about your relationship to Clementine when there's no reason to. De-escalating the situation is the correct call in my mind, even if you can say that Lee is rightfully angry because he had a gun in his face. This is a personal take, however, as one could easily argue that the aggressive approach here is Lee's only means of ensuring his survival. Once the situation has quieted down, you learn that Vernon and the others are cancer survivors who've been hiding out down here since the new rules started coming in at Crawford. That would have them killed for being there. They say cast out, but Crawford doesn't seem to give people the option to fend for themselves. Otherwise, why would they be worried about it? Crawford would just discover they're there and it wouldn't really be any of their concern. So they must be malevolent enough to do something like loot their supplies or straight up kill them. We also discover that Vernon is a doctor and has been tending to the injuries of his group for some time. You convince Vernon to show you how to get back to your group. How you convince him to do so will reflect in his attitudes towards you later down the line. When you return, a lot has been happening in your absence. I haven't really touched on this much, but characters do stuff when you're not around. It's a common issue in video games where everything only happens when the main character is involved. But even things like Clementine not telling you about the radio, Ben sneaking supplies, the Bells, the rest of the group sneaking up on the St. John's, everyone has their own things that they're busy with. It makes it feel like a group of survivors with their own interests and goals. It's really cool. Omid has gotten worse and Krista pleads for Vernon to have a look at him. With Vernon looking at Omid, you're left to look for Clementine, and the music indicates this is a tense situation for Lee because this has been the longest time he's gone without Clem being around. Ben mouths back to you if you pressure him about where Clementine is. Molly insists she's somewhere. Helpful. Kenny is getting shit-faced, which doesn't help things, but if you beat him up on the train, he suggests going for round 2. Kenny is more bark than bite in most cases, even if you do play a Lee where he's more proactive. The music swells and you can't see Clementine anywhere in the yard, but you do hear thumping from inside the shed. You go to open the double doors of the shed, and Clementine bursts through the doors with considerable force, and honestly, if you don't choose the option,
Hey, girl.
it's a red flag. Now, with a bit of time to reunite, we see what's been inside the shed the whole time.
Whoa.
I know, right?
Kenny stumbles out and drops to his knees in disbelief. It's like all the grief and suffering has brought him to this one moment where he can connect as a sensitive instrument, commune, and finally have a moment of wait, wrong script. But he's happy about the boat. We cut to Lee pacing and asking questions, Molly telling him to stop, which is rich considering she tried to kill us moments ago. She wants passage on the boat too for saving us. At least this time, everyone is with Kenny about getting on the boat. I'm sure if Lily were here, she would have wanted to stay in the fortified house and starve or something.
It's not going to be easier out on the road! Christ! Oh shit!
Kenny comes back in moments later and tells us the boat needs fuel and a battery.
That's it. That's all she needs. Some gas and a battery. Other than that, she's good to go.
Just one small problem. Get a battery from where, Ken? Fucking aqua. Lee can suggest Crawford, which is the conclusion the rest of the group comes to even if you don't suggest it in the first place. If you do, people look at you and disagree for a moment before considering it the best plan given everything. It's a risk, but what's the alternative, really? Crawford would also have medical supplies, which both Vernon's group and ours could use. Vernon has knowledge of the sewer systems underneath, so that's your point of entry. Everyone agrees this is the way forward. Clementine overhears the conversation and inquires about the plan, and you point out it's probably going to be dangerous, to which she says she'll pack her stuff under the assumption she's coming. You can choose to bring her along or she can stay behind, but in hindsight I always think that bringing her along is the best option given she'd be home alone with just Omid because everyone else needs to be there. Not taking her does change a few things, so we'll go over that as we progress. The group may also disagree with this decision of bringing Clementine, but ultimately they trust your judgment for better or for worse. If you choose to bring Clementine, during Lee's pep talk to the group, he'll also mention that Clem needs to be extra cautious and listen to everything Lee says. It reminds me of Qui-Gon bringing Anakin to the Battle of Naboo, a master teaching by showing. And if you think Star Wars references are out of left field, well, you'll see. There's also two options of advice you can give to Clementine if you choose to leave her behind. You can either suggest that she hide if there is danger, or you can recommend that she shoots the danger immediately and to aim for the head. These actually result in two different outcomes. Opening the manhole, we're not greeted by any guards or anything for that matter. The streets are quiet and the whole group manages to hide in the night. There aren't many guards except one that we see. Anyone who watches this guards movement will probably notice pretty quickly it's a walker, and sneaking up and killing it confirms it. Then all the walkers come out like they're throwing a surprise party and we quickly rush inside the building. Ben asks if they saw us and Lee can go for the response definitely here. If you choose this and Clementine is with you, you will have scared her, which is enough to rewind your save and choose a different dialogue option. Vernon and the group agree that the plan doesn't change, and you can also agree with him that it's easier to deal with walkers than armed guards. Brie, who, oh yeah, I forgot to mention her. She's one of the cancer survivors, and Kenny gets a bit annoyed when he meets her.
Who the hell is this?
This is Brie. She can help us.
She's also the one who suggested shooting us, so I'm not the biggest fan of her. Kenny also mentioned in a private conversation to us that the boat has a max capacity, even with just our group, so at some point they'll have to make a difficult decision of who gets to go on the boat and who gets left behind. We get a classic Star Wars reference.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, that's why I brought up Star Wars. And quickly find a section of the school we can use as a control room of sorts. There's a few things to interact with here, including these creepy dolls. There's something ghoulish about visiting a school being used as a command base for operations where children were removed from the environment entirely. There's a map of the facility in this room, and therefore we can figure out where things were stored across Crawford. Brie pointing out the motor shop, Molly pointing out the nurse's station. I mean, Molly has tried to hide the fact that she's from Crawford, but she's not doing a very good job. Even on my first playthrough, it was easy to piece together with everything that she's told us. You can check in with Clementine and talk to her about how she actually really misses school. Kids are notoriously interested in going to school, so that tracks. What I meant by that is, living in a world that's gone to hell like this, anything that we could cling to from a time that was better is something worth holding on to. Clementine will ask Lee if he thinks things will ever get better, and I never saw this as a question the player believes will happen, but rather whether you would choose to comfort Clementine or be honest with her. I think it's entirely justifiable to tell her the reality of matters, especially since at this point Clementine requires honesty and survival tools rather than postulating on a better world in the future. Or you could agree with her and let her dream of a future where things are better, something that's worth fighting for. I personally want to instill some level of hope in her. Ben will also insist he should tell Kenny that he's responsible for giving supplies to the bandits. He may be a kid, but he understands accountability and honesty in a group situation. It's eating away at him, and clearing his conscience would give him peace of mind that he may not have otherwise. Clementine's also not impressed with being left with Ben, but you could say this to her to comfort her.
I'm not leaving you with Ben. I'm leaving him with you. Understand?
Oh, okay.
She's so cute. So our teams are selected. Vernon and Krista go to get the medicine. Brie and Kenny are grabbing the fuel. Lee and Molly are assigned to the battery. As you walk down the hallway, you may pick up on some details like the bloody handprint on a locker that might be important later, and the "don't dead open inside" kind of reference with the doors. You can also learn about Oberson's rules from the poster pasted on some of the lockers. So we head down to go get the battery, and Molly is nowhere to be seen. There's a little movement where something moves quickly across the screen as a shadow, and to this day I have no idea who this is supposed to be. It doesn't look like Molly's silhouette, and it's moving faster than a walker, so it just comes across as a little bit of a cheap jump scare, I guess. Molly is nowhere to be seen, and then a walker drops from the rooftops, with Molly soon following after that saying he's hers. It's pretty clear that she's taking it out more on this walker than she usually would with any other walker, and it's just further evidence to the idea that she's from Crawford and this guy wronged her in some way. We get some wonderful voice acting from Molly's actor here.
What's wrong with you?
What's the matter? Never seen someone kill a geek before?
Not like that. He's wearing medical scrubs. Some kind of scientist or doctor, maybe?
Yeah, well, he ain't shit now.
The lines carry so much weight and are delivered with such purpose. There's a tense moment here where you have to get the garage door open, and luckily we have a car jack for the job. Once inside, we're mostly safe for the time being, and there's a small puzzle section where we have to get the car down, but the hydraulics are keeping it up. This is where we ask to borrow Molly's climbing pick, named Hilda, and we get another Star Wars reference.
I got your promise now. Not a scratch.
See? This is why I brought up Star Wars. This is also why I called the pick Hilda. Lee's delivery here seems like he finds it weird that Molly names her tools, but he also found it weird that Danny named his gun.
She's a 30-footer.
Didn't ask about your kinks, Ken. So maybe Lee just doesn't understand the purpose of naming objects. Maybe he's not a big Castaway fan. Cutting the hydraulics down causes the car to fall too quickly, which sets off the alarm. Not great in this scenario. We're greeted with a time sequence to get the battery out of the car. And I haven't spoken about this a lot, but I find some of the QTEs unintuitive. I get you have to pick the correct action, but it does take me out of the experience when you click on the thing you need to take off only for Lee to make a comment about taking it off rather than doing it.
The negative terminal's still screwed on.
The game has a few of these situations, and I think for the most part it's fixed in later installments, but having Lee say the battery is still attached to the terminal. No shit, Sherlock, take it off. We grab the battery, put it in Molly's pack, and head to the top of the truck, and Lee looks to Molly for a solution, and there's this funny interaction where Lee's constant asking of questions rather than taking action is criticized by Molly. Even funnier if you've been doing a silent Lee playthrough. Ugh. We shoot out the glass and climb to the roof with Molly's help. Molly leaps across the building only to mock Lee for being chicken, which leads to this interaction.
Come on, what are you, chicken? Jump!
What did you call me? Well, now that you mention it...
You may be led to the conclusion you have to time your interaction here with the jump, but you actually just jump without any timing, which works better in this game than trying to time things. Some QTEs in this game are unforgiving, and that doesn't really serve a game like this well in some cases. We drop back into the abandoned school. Molly has to do something and leaves while holding onto the battery. Wonderful. Kenny and Brie storm in, panicked at this moment. A lot of time is spent closing the glass door, which is surprisingly sturdy at keeping putting walkers out, with the help from a hatchet we had on hand. Carrying the fuel and returning to the classroom, Kenny gets to work on the door and tries to assist Ben, and we have a small chat with Brie about how she's doing. If you were aggressive and threatening, Brie refuses to talk to you here, stating that she's just here to help her people.
Brie?
No offense, but I'm not really looking for conversation.
What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong. I just don't particularly like you.
If this is about Vernon, I did what I had to do to get him to help us. I was only looking out for my people.
And I'm looking out for mine. That's the only reason I'm here. So, if there's nothing else...
If you chose a non-violent approach, you can discuss things more in depth with her. Her cancer is in remission and the zombie outbreak occurred, leaving her in a world just barely worth living in. There's a sad sense of irony to it. Sometimes we survive only to end up in a bad situation, and it can be really taxing in that situation. She has no sympathy for what happened to the people of Crawford. Ousting the sick, elderly, and children has no justification. The people here were complicit in the might makes right mentality. And while a few good people may have been present, it represents an outlook that was actively abhorrent and savage. Vernon and Krista are taking a while, so we go check up on them to find they are locked inside with a small group of walkers that somehow got in. We take care of them, with Krista panicking about the building being infested with them. We can see indications that the lower levels of the building are crawling with walkers, so that's definitely not an acceptable escape route. I wonder if we're gonna try it. The issue they're having is that the medicine is locked behind a gate with a numpad. I feel like the game oversells how much noise it would make getting it open, and considering Lee took out walkers by shooting them earlier with no actual consequence leads me to think we could use the tools we brought to get it open relatively quietly. It is really one of those video game moments where there's a log blocking your path. It's easy to jump over, but your character just won't.
Oh man, my entire day is ruined now.
This does serve a purpose though. We're meant to find the tapes to play in the video recorder to learn about the fall of Crawford. From a narrative perspective, we're meant to follow the chain of events which led us to this. Talking to Krista, we can express why we brought Clementine along if we did, which leads to her getting defensive about Omid's situation. Krista's deep love of Omid means she rejects any notion he may not be okay. She may actually register that this is something we may have to deal with, but she's barely hanging to hope, so pushing her on this isn't really necessary right now. Vernon is mostly focused on the task at hand and also pointing out that the sooner they help Omid the better. Infections are serious illnesses, which is hard to remember because since the invention of antibiotics we've essentially neutralized a large portion of their threat. I mean, you can still get resistant bacteria and other infections that are much more difficult to fight off, but for the most part, in an apocalyptic setting, all of those diseases suddenly become a very serious and real threat. Anyone who's had a kidney infection can tell you how fun that experience is. It's me, I had a kidney infection. Lee finds a tape that's recording from one of the medical logs from a woman receiving the bad news that she's pregnant, and in Crawford, that means abortion is mandatory. Every person who can carry a pregnancy should have the right to make that choice for themselves, and any situation that forces them to make that call against their wishes is deplorable. Wanting to raise a child is your right, and having that taken away from you is just heartbreaking. Krista seems to agree with how she reacted to the recording. It's about as subtle as a train wreck that Krista is pregnant, and you can pick this up pretty early on, but this would be the nail in the coffin, which gives us another insight into her motives that she probably wants to raise her child with Omid. There's reasons outside her love for him that she wants him around. The next task is finding another tape where we may be able to get the code, and Lee remembers earlier a walker wearing medical scrubs. So we hop back over the fence after getting jump scared by a walker and grab a code for something as well as a tape. If you're paying attention, which you have, look at you, there was a locker with a handprint on it telegraphed to us. So it's easy to make the jump to assuming that we need to use the code with that locker. A bit more intuitive environmental storytelling. So we head back and use the code on the locker and get a third tape before heading back into the nurse's station. The second tape is interesting because it shows how the walker situation likely started. The woman from the previous tape stabs the doctor and kills him. We can assume from that one walker and a few surprise attacks later they were dealing with an outbreak. I do find it unusual that one walker could do this because because we were apparently dealing with a militaristic society, whose leader saw himself as the only capable one of doing his job. So they were probably extremely incompetent as well as savage. Or maybe multiple outbreaks occurred that couldn't be contained all at once. At least we're able to grab the code in that second tape. But now we have a third tape.
Lizard, 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 lizard.
You can skip using this third tape, but I don't know why you would. The third tape shows the doctor zipping up his pants. Lovely. When he moves to the side, we can see that he's talking to Molly. If you were paying attention, which I believe in you would have been able to tell that Molly speaks from a place of experience a few times about Crawford, and when challenged is vague about it. The exchange was sex for meds for her sister, who would have been thrown out without them, because every medical interaction needs to be recorded, as well as this one for some reason. He can no longer make this deal with her. We head out towards the classroom, to which Molly jump scares us by climbing back through the roof. We confront her about lying and not being from Crawford. She explains her sister was diabetic and she started showing symptoms without insulin, and Molly was able to get out, but she wanted to grab a photograph she left behind as a last memory of her. You could choose to be hostile about this, but I think it's just unnecessarily mean. Ben rushes into the hallway saying they've made little headway in getting the armory door open, but in typical Ben fashion, he removed a hatchet which was clearly keeping the door closed.
He sent me out to look for something we can use to bust it open. I found this.
Ben? Where did you get that?
I just found it. It was stuck in the door handle at the end of the hallway back there.
Oh no.
Nice one, Ben. A small fight ensues with Molly fending off walkers in melee range. There's a moment where she looks like she might be in trouble, and she 100% could have been. If you're fast enough, you can take out this walker without her being in any danger. Or if you brought Clementine, she can make the shot. If you miss the shot or don't have Clementine with you, she leaves through the hole in the roof, never to be seen again. Yes, bringing Clementine actually ends up with her being able to guarantee that Molly will be with us in the final act of this episode. Because there's no way anyone could predict this though, you can make the shot if you're quick enough. But sometimes having choices in games that don't necessarily have logical outcomes or anything you could have predicted makes it feel cohesive and a little bit more of a surprise in the story. Of course it was a risk to bring Clem, but she's proven to be resourceful and now shown herself to be good in a fight. We'll get into the spoil later, but I do believe the game sees certain choices as incorrect. There is no right way to play the game, but certain playthroughs miss out on more context and contents. So from a completionist point of view, I see it as a crying shame you can miss out on so much by playing it differently. However, not as much as I thought initially. You see, on my subsequent playthroughs, I've come to realize that there's a lot more depth to this game's choices than I first realized. The tone changes as we rush into the classroom, a more desperate one, while Brie holds the door closed. It won't hold for long. Ben is panicked and starts claiming everything is his fault. Kenny is more focused on leaving until he says one more thing.
What do you mean this is all your fault?
Penny, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, man.
Kid, this ain't the best time. Whatever you did, save it for later.
Ben, shut the fuck up.
Fuck you, Lee. I can't do this anymore. It's been me all along, putting all of us in danger. Katja and Duck, it was all me. It was all me.
Wait a minute. What are you saying?
It was me who made the deal with the bandits at the motor inn, slipping them supplies. I thought maybe I could keep them off our backs. When it got discovered, that's when they attacked. And that's when Duck...
Kenny throws himself at Ben, ready to beat this kid into the ground. His whole family gone. Kenny, who's only blamed himself for how everything played out. He finally has an explanation. Someone to blame. Someone who he can take everything out on. Kenny's pent-up sadness projected as aggression against a kid whose mistake cost him everything.
Nice group you got here.
Not the time, Molly.
Thanks, Molly. Kenny reveals what he and you discussed before leaving the mission. The boat isn't big enough for everyone. We should leave Ben behind. And Krista agrees at first. everyone decides at that moment to put it to a vote.
Sure! Take a vote! This is America! Fuck it!
If you bring Clementine and say she gets a vote, the sincere tone of Clem will make Krista abstain. What you say here carries a much darker tone if you vote on leaving Ben. Ben is currently facing the ramifications of his mistakes head on. There's nothing you can say to make the pain go away. The first step in healing is accountability, but you have to take it one day at a time. But what is one more day in a world where people can decide to leave you behind with no means of surviving by yourself? Brie chimes in and...
We get a sight.
Well, shit. I don't have much to say about Brie other than the fact that she's the reason your confrontation with Vernon escalated so harshly back in the morgue hideout they had. She's acting out of concern for her and her group's well-being when none of them are fighters or combat capable in any way. She seems gentle and well-spoken, but there's something about her eyes and overall design. She seems decades older than any of the much older characters. It's a look I relate to because I felt the way she looks, acts and speaks. Jaded, that's the word that comes to mind with Brie. We make our escape through the armory door, unable to close it because it had been kicked down. For some reason the group decides to try and escape by going down, which is just silly. It's one of those blunders I couldn't imagine happening with this group of hardened survivors in any circumstance, to be honest. Now we have to fight our way up, which leads to one of my favorite cinematic moments as we climb the tower after Lee is separated from the group by getting his leg stuck. We yank ourselves free and get this sequence. That was so cool. We all get to the top, and after hugging Clementine, a bell starts ringing. Remember when Chuck made the bell tolls reference? Well, this wraps up the arc of that statement, because the first time the bell rang, Clementine was put in danger when Ben ran to safety. Now Ben is grabbed by the walker hanging from the bell and pulled to his doom. Lee is just able to grab him. The music swells as Ben insists for Lee to let him go, that there's no time, that he's done fighting.
There's no time! You have to go! Now!
Fucking around, Ben!
While he's alive, all he does is cause problems. Letting him fall would be a mercy for him at the moment when he feels lost and broken. Kenny also seems to want you to leave him behind. The type of man Lee is here, dropping Ben, I think this is one of the most damning things Lee can do. Even if he's killed, yelled at people, been aggressive and hostile, there's almost no justification I can come up with for dropping a kid who would rather be dead than face another day. You have the option to let him try for one more day or just let him go. We'll operate under the assumption that Ben exists for the next section because there's a lot to talk about regarding him after this point, but dropping him and missing these interactions is an option. We'll be thorough as if that wasn't clear at this point. We get back to the house, exhausted. If you left Clementine with Omid, a walker can appear out of nowhere with Clem hiding in the broom closet, or Clementine will have shot the walker. Either way, we rush to Omid, and there's a moment where we're not sure if he's dead. On first playthrough, this was tense. I like Omid a lot, and I would have been so heartbroken to see him go here. Some antibiotics and recovery time later, he should be okay. Vernon wants to have a private talk. When you talk to him, his attitude can be gentle and cautious or hostile depending on how you've treated him. The conclusion of this discussion is that Vernon believes Clementine would be better off with his group. He's raised kids before and now they have an easier life with Crawford out of the way. On my first playthrough, Lee was kind to a fault, didn't kill people, didn't threaten or lie to Vernon, and apart from beating the sense into Kenny, had chosen the path of least bloodshed. But this, Vernon plainly telling me Clem staying with me would end up with her dead, he snapped.
I'll take her off your hands. Take her back with me, to my people. We're well supplied, well hidden, and a lot of us have had kids of our own. And now Crawford's fallen, we got nothing left to fear from them. She'll be safe with us. Safer than she will be if she stays with you, I promise you. That's what you want for her, isn't it? To be safe?
I'm gonna pretend you didn't say any of this and give you a chance to walk away, which you ought to do right now.
I know you think you're doing what's best for her, And if you were her real father, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But you're not. And staying with you is not what's best for her. If no one else around here will tell you that, then I will.
That little girl's in my care. We've been through more together than you can imagine. Anyone who tries to get between me and her, anyone, is gonna wind up dead. You hear me?
Take your hands off me.
You can choose to agree with him here too, but I've never seen how any person would believe this is the better outcome for her. Vernon may be a man of principle, but he's quick to mouth off with no follow-through. He's no good in a fight, and no one in his group is either. They wouldn't last long if they were attacked, and this is a hostile world. In no way is Vernon a bad man, but he's misguided if he thinks he's prepared to take care of Clem in this world. There's nothing outside of medical knowledge his group can offer. As sad as it is to say, that softness in their group will get people killed, and he's ignorant to that. This is the last we see of Vernon. If Molly was saved, she'll mention how much you mean to Clem before leaving the group. You find Claire in the study of the upstairs area. Claire? Who the fuck is Claire? She laments that Kenny is fixing up the boat and they'd be sea-bound soon, and there would be no time to look for her parents. No matter how you try to comfort her, Clem weeps as she comes to terms with the fact. Lee falls asleep on the couch with the walkie next to him. He wakes up to find the walkie gone. This time he goes outside, immediately looking for Clem, and finds her hat on the ground. Static bursts to life from the radio that's lying outside. Lee, in disarray, reaches for the audio, and this happens. You get to choose. Hide the bite or tell everyone. This moment is where the game went from a good character-driven narrative to being one of my all-time favorites. We've now been forced into a scenario we've prepared for in abstract, but it wasn't quantifiable. Everything we've done has now been brought back to us as a moment of vulnerability. We need to rely on others now. We're not going to make it, but Clementine still can. That's all that matters now. You have a death sentence in the form of this bite. All it took was a moment of complacency at the wrong time for everything to go wrong. I have experience with this actually. I am a trained venomous reptile handler and have experience with many species as well as other exotic animals. There's this unspoken agreement between you and your passions that at any moment one mistake could be your last. I loved working with Venomous and I've had close calls, and you just have to make peace with that. But there's a level of disconnection, right? I couldn't ever possibly be bitten, right? I haven't yet, so I've made the right calls, right? No, we're all human, and even in dangerous jobs or environments with the most careful people, the worst can happen, and when it does, we need to make peace with ourselves. We need to hope that we can rely on people to get us through it. On my first playthrough, I was shaken. This paragon of a man I'd been playing just had the worst outcome occur. And on top of that, Clementine is missing. Your best assumption is that Vernon abducted her. The worst outcome is that you can end up going alone. Kenny might tell you that he's a good Christian man, but he doesn't know if you've ever been there for him. You can convince him to do it for Clementine, but there are situations in which he will never go. Omid and Christo won't follow you if you hide your bite. Ben will stay behind if you tell him to, or if he's, dead. You can end up going alone. All the consequences of how you've played Lee leading you to your final moments, with the only good thing about you being that you've taken care of Clementine. The only service you can do for the world now is to save her. Or everyone comes along, or just Krista and Amin, or just you get the idea. You burst into the morgue to find Vernon and his group of survivors to be completely gone. The radio bursts to life. The unnamed voice tells you it's not Vernon, and you're left with a choice on how you respond after hearing that he has Clementine.
Vernon, put Clementine back on. I want to talk to her.
This isn't Vernon, and you should really watch your tone. Clementine's fine, but if I were you, I'd choose my next words very carefully.
Hello, hello, hello. Hi. I'm just sleeping after doing the video. The Walking Dead, more like the sleepy head. No, seriously, thank you everyone for being super cool and patient and stuff. I mean, I'm saying that, but like, I don't get that many views. But this project, fucking COD or something, this project means a lot to me, and any support I get is like really cool. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one, which I hope to release soon. Also, sorry for doing no makeup this time around. I actually ran out of makeup and I'm super broke, so I couldn't do it this time around. But hopefully next video the makeup will return. Anyway, I'm going to bed. Go play a video game. Go make out with Shadowheart and Baldur's Gate 3.